another Wednesday story time with you all today, and we are reading the next chapter from our book Gumtree Gulley that we've been reading in January. And if you have missed the first or second chapters, you can go back and look at the first and second chapters the last 2 weeks of videos and see those before you watch this one. Today is going to be chapter 3, and it is called The Bushfire. Okay, and today's story ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. Has anybody ever heard of that before? A story that is a cliffhanger? Well, that means that you know how like sometimes you might watch a movie where somebody in the movie is like in this really scary situation, like maybe they're hanging off the edge of a cliff, and you think, oh no, what's going to happen to them? How are they going to get out of the situation? And then somehow, hopefully, they get out of that situation and they're rescued. But that's what that means. That's like a phrase that means the story cuts off right at the point where you're thinking, oh no, what's going to happen? And then you have to wait until the next week, next episode. That's going to be next week that we will finish the cliffhanger. Okay, so today, the bushfire. It was a blazing hot summer's day in Gumtree Gulley. Early in the morning, the two youngest animals, Rocky the wallaby and Bluey the possum, had been playing among the bushes and the wildflowers. But as the day got hotter, they went down to a cool spot by the creek to lie in the shade and listen to the water splashing over the rocks. Paddle the platypus swam up to them and said, "This is where you two ought to be on a hot day, here in the water with me. It's very cool and refreshing in here." "No thanks," said Bluey. "I can't swim." Paddle snorted. "Oh, come on, swimming's easy. It just comes naturally to me. What about you, Rocky? I suppose you're going to tell me that you can't swim either?" "That's right," said Rocky. "I can't swim either." "But it's so easy," said Paddle as he swam in a lazy backstroke across to the other side of the creek and back again. "Come on in, give it a try." "I'll tell you what," said Bluey. "I'll come into the water with you and try to swim if you'll climb up one of these tall gum trees with me. So, how about it?" "Not on your Nelly," snapped Paddle. "I might fall off a branch and land right on my noggin. I'd do myself some damage. That would be very silly." "It's about as silly as me trying to swim," said Bluey with a laugh. At that, the platypus dived under the water and swam away, leaving a tiny trail of bubbles on the surface of the creek. As the morning wore on, all the animals became sleepy. They lay down in the shade to doze through the hottest part of the day. While they were sleeping, dark clouds began to pile up in the sky. Big black clouds building up like floating mountains above the gully. A sudden loud crash of thunder woke all the animals. "What was that?" said Bluey, rubbing his eyes. "Was it an explosion?" asked Rocky. "It sounded like a small war," said Sneaky the goanna, coming out from underneath a rock. "It even woke me up," complained Curly the koala. "You people look so startled and silly," laughed Jacko the kookaburra. "You're quite a hoot, the lot of you." Just then the thunder crashed again. Wise old Wombat put his hairy nose out of his wombat hole and said, "Looks like we're in for a summer storm." "What's a summer storm?" asked Bluey. "The worst kind," muttered Wombat, turning around and disappearing into his hole again. The black clouds were not directly overhead. The animals on the creek bank watched as this dark storm circled around them from the south to the west and then drifting towards the north. Inside those clouds were sudden flashes, After each flash, there was a loud crash of thunder. Then a giant spark of lightning shot from one cloud to another. The roar was deafening. Here's a picture. You see all the animals looking up at the lightning in the sky? Rocky, I don't think I like this, said Bluey in a small voice. I wish it would go away. It will, said Sneaky the Go-On-It. It always does. Just then, another brilliant white flash of lightning shot out of the blackest cloud and struck the ground somewhere over the treetops at the far end of Gumtree Gulley. The thunder that came with the lightning strike seemed to make the ground tremble. When the wind sprang up and the clouds were blown further and further away, in the distance they could be seen releasing their rain in a heavy downpour. But none of that rain fell onto Gumtree Gulley. Bluey the Possum scampered up to the top of a tall river red gum and looked about. The wind was stronger now, and the summer storm was far away to the horizon. Then Bluey sniffed the breeze and smelled something he didn't like. Smoke! He yelled out to the animals in the clearing below. I can smell smoke! I'll take a look, called out Jacko as he spread his wings and took off over the trees. Bluey ran back down the tree trunk and joined the other animals in the clearing, waiting for the kookaburra to return. They waited 1 minute, then 2, then 3, and then Jacko flew back and landed in the clearing. This time, Jacko wasn't laughing. It's a bushfire, he gasped, burning at the far end of Gumtree Gulley. Perhaps it will burn itself out, said Curly the koala hopefully. Here's a picture, too, of the bushfire. Whoa. That's kind of scary. Perhaps it will stay at the far end of the gully, away from us, said Rocky. But perhaps it won't, said Bluey worriedly. Then what will we do? Stay near the creek, said the wise old wombat who had just come out of his burrow. That's all we can do. The youngest animals hurried over to Wombat's side. They said, It will be all right, won't it, Wombat? Instead of answering, Wombat looked anxious and said, You sometimes call me wise, young animals. The problem is, I'm not wise enough. In fact, right now, I feel very foolish. We have not obeyed the ranger's orders. None of us have. And there is leaf litter scattered all over Gumtree Gulley. There are piles of dead leaves surrounding many of the trees. The whole gully is a fire trap, all because we did not obey the ranger's order to clear up the leaf litter. And now it's too late. Now the fire has started, and all those dry, dead leaves will be fuel for the fire to burn. Wombat shook his head slowly and sadly. Above them, a great cloud of smoke curled its way up into the sky. A short while later, they could see the flames, huge red flames, leaping high into the air. The wind was getting stronger all the time, whipping around them and pushing the fire from tree to tree, from bush to bush, until the ridgetops on every side were burning. The temperature rose and the air was filled with a stinging, stabbing heat, hotter than the midday sun. Gumtree Gulley was surrounded by flames, and the animals knew they were in deadly danger. That's the end for this week, you guys. I told you it was a cliffhanger. I'm a little nervous. I haven't read the next chapter yet, so I don't know what happens. Hopefully they're going to be okay. So let's talk a little bit about what's in this story. Remember, we already talked about if this were a story that were kind of like our lives, who is the ranger in that story? He's God, right? Yeah. And who are the animals? They're like us. We're God's people, right? That he watches over and takes care of. And then what would Gumtree Gulley be like, the place where they lived? That would be like the earth, right? That God has given us a beautiful place to live too. Okay, so let's talk about what's happening this week. The animals of Gumtree Gulley have brought this disaster on themselves. They are paying the price for not obeying the ranger. They all said no to him, not just with their voices, but with their actions too. They ignored him and they ignored his orders. They did not do what he told them to do. It's just like us and God. God is the only true king. He won't let people go if they say no to him. He will do something about it. The punishment for saying no to God is not a bushfire. It's being shut out of God's kingdom and God's family forever. By our actions, we say no to God. We ignore him and refuse to obey him. Because we all do that, we all end up hurting each other and making a mess of God's world. But God won't let us go on saying no to him. He won't let us go on pretending to be kings, ignoring his orders, and running our lives without him. One day, God will show everyone that he is the one true king. He will set up a wonderful kingdom that will never end. And on that day, everyone who has been saying no to him will be shut out of his kingdom forever. So, just like the animals decided not to do what the ranger told them to do, he told them to clean up the leaves, right? And they thought, that doesn't sound like much fun. We'll do that another time. We don't want to do that today. So they didn't tell him no, not all of them, when he was there talking to them, but they didn't do what he said, right? So the Bible says in Hebrews, we will all die once and then face judgment. That's Hebrews 9:27. So what do you guys think? Is the ranger going to come back maybe? And he's going to deal with all this mess? I hope so. It sounds like the animals need him now, right? Okay. Well, we'll read the next chapter next week. We still have a few more chapters left in this book, okay? And I hope that you guys are enjoying it. Sorry, this one was a cliffhanger though, but we'll get to the conclusion of that part next week. Okay. So I just want to remind you guys that next Sunday, the 24th, we're having in-person kids church, and just have your parents let me know if they haven't already that you are going to be there, and I'll be so excited to see you. And I love all you guys, and I miss those of you that I haven't seen for a while. I hope you're doing well, and I'm praying for you and thinking about you. Okay. Bye, guys. Have a great day.